Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Juliana and today finally we are going to talk about The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje. So talking a bit about, this is a Portuguese edition as you can see, but I wanted to talk a bit about the author. So Michael Ondaatje was born in Sri Lanka in 1943 and he's a Canadian writer. He had citizenship in 1962 and he comes from a family with origins on Netherlands, Tasmania, even Portuguese. And in 1954 he ended up residing in England. He immigrated to Montreal at 19 years old and he went to the University of Toronto and University of Queen. So Michael Ondaatje, I think we can say he's a citizen of the world. He passed through different countries. His family is from different origins, so he has ascendants in many parts of the world. And he also a poet, but The English Patient, is my first reading experience from this author. I have seen the movie first, so many years ago. I remember in my teenage years, I saw the movie for the first time and I loved it. So it was my first contact with this work. It was a movie, so this book is from 1992 and it was one of the main Booker Prize winners from that year, 1992. And the movie adaptation was from 1996 with the director Anthony Minghella, I don't know how well to pronounce it, known by other movies such as The Talented Mr. Ripley from 1999, Cold Mountain from 2003, 9 from 2009. He did other well-known movies, and as I can gather from my research, The English Patient had a really well reception at the time, also because the book was awarded, so I will link down below a link for an interview with the author where he talks about a bit the process of writing the script for the movie, where he says that the movie has its own DNA, so it kind of differs from the book as it's expected in any adaptation. So if you're interested, click in the link and you will be able to read that interview. Now talking about the plot of The English Patient. So we begin the story with the title in the chapter, Villa San Girolamo, that we suppose is in Italy by the name, right? But we don't know exactly where we are. We don't know the names of the characters that are presented, because we enter in the story with a young lady, a young woman that is taking care of patient that we understand is a patient because he is burned and he is disfigured. We gather that they are alone in what we understand. We later understand they are in a convent that was transformed in a front hospital or a campaign hospital. I don't know how well to translate it. And we understand that they were left behind by the wanting of this, we understand, nurse that we don't know the name yet, that is taking care of this English patient that is called the English Patient because he supposedly doesn't remember who he is, where his name, or many things. that he supposedly doesn't know. And so she's kind of a nomad in the house. She sleeps here and there in the house, no, in the convent, in the hospital. And she trades goods with the man that comes by from that villa, like soap, sheets for other essential goods for their survival. We know as well that she has a little land where she cultivates some vegetables near the convent. So they are passing by like that, but you know, she has to be strict with the resources they have, but they are alone. And so we later find out we are in April 1945. So this is during the end of the Second World War. The convent is in ruins, so that's why in a way they are protected from bandits. That's a thought of the nurse. And we know that the patient, the burned patient, so the English patient, get out of a plane in flames. And that's it. That is how, so it was supposedly an accident or something like that, and he was taken out of a plane in flames. The only belonging, or the few belongings that were taken with the English patient were or was a book, The Histories of Your Doodles, and we understand that this was like a journal for the English patient, because he has his own annotations, he has passages from other books, he has postcards or collages. It's like a collage book that he gathered along the years, we suppose. He wrote about winds of the desert, storms, sandstorms of various regions of the Middle East, and we have here hints of the life of the English patient. Then in the next chapters we are presented to another character, that is the man with the man with bonded hands. I think that's how you can translate it. I'm sorry, because I read this book in Portuguese, so that's why I don't really know the real or the original terms that were used. I will get to the translation a bit later, so wait a moment. And we know that he's in Rome, in a hospital for 4 months, and he's a very reserved and a very reserved person. He doesn't talk about what he did during the war. He doesn't talk with the nurses or with the doctors. So no one really knows who he is, what is his name, where he came from. But he hears a conversation between nurses about a nurse that is taking care of the English patient in the north of Florence. And he hears her name and he gets very interested, and we understand that perhaps he knows her. So the next thing that happens is that he takes a train and goes to the north of Italy and goes to the villa where the English patient and the nurse are. And then we get to know the name of the nurse, Hannah. And we understand that the man with bonded hands is called Caravaggio, and Anna and Caravaggio are from Canada. And Caravaggio, in conversations with Anna after the first encounter and the first contact after a long time apart, Caravaggio confesses to Anna that, well, Anna already knew this, but supposedly Caravaggio was a thief, and his skills were used by the Allies for him to be a spy. So he says that his skills were officialized, shall we say it like that. So he continues to be a thief, but he took a name spy, you know. So that's why he was very reserved in Rome. He didn't want to have anyone to know what he did during the war, because the war was still ongoing, although at the end, but at the time it wasn't sure, right? We understand that he doesn't have his thumbs, and he tells the story on why he doesn't have his thumbs, because they were cut out from him by a nurse, but in the orders of the Germans. And then we have a scene where Hannah is playing at the piano in the library of the convent, and we have two characters appearing, and they are from the British military, and they are dismantlers of mines and bombs. One man that appears is called Kirpal Singh, nickname Kip. So he's Sikh, I think that's how you say it. He had a turban in his head. And for you to know what a ski is in some way, it's kind of linked to Sikhism, a religion originated in the ends of the 15th century in Punjab, in the Indian subcontinent, with bases in the revelation of Guru Nanak. The term ski, meaning disciple or student. The skis of the male skis are generally have the surname Singh. That means lion. Although not all Singhs are necessarily Sikhs. This surname was exclusively given by the gurus in a way to allow the Sikhs to establish a difference and an act of defiance to the system of castes in India, of which the gurus were always against. The Sikhs believe firmly in the idea of well-being for all, and are frequently seen in the front line helping in humanitarian help all over the world. So Kirpal Singh is one of these men, and as I said, he's working for the British Army. And what happens is that Anna was playing at the piano, and Kirpal enters and asks her to stop, and explains that perhaps the piano has a bomb that can explode at any time. But before that, a bit about Hannah. So she was in Santa Chiara Hospital when an officer gave her a letter with the news that her father died in the war. A few days later, she knew the English patient, and it was like a bond of peace for her, and that's why she decided to stay behind with the English patient. It was a way for her to take care of someone, as she could take care of her father. You know, there will be a relationship between Kip and Hannah, but they will be kind of, well, it's war, you know, so, and Kip is dismantler of mines and bombs, so his life is always on the line, and he has to be very focused when he's doing his job. So he doesn't know what tomorrow brings. And he has that kind of mentality. So he's a bit distant, although he talks about his family. They have moments, you know. And we accompany these. Oh, he has a companion, a working companion called Sam Hardy that I don't know, I should tell you. I don't know if it is a spoiler, but, well, be warned that from now on, perhaps I will be talking about a bit spoilery, so be aware. But Sam Harris ends up dying trying to dismantle a mine, and that affects deeply Kip. And that's something curious about the movie and the book that I will talk about later. So this is going on. So we have the interaction with Kip and the English patient as well, because Kip gets to know the English patient and gets to understand that the English patient knows a lot about German bombs and how they work and how to dismantle them, and guns and so on and so forth. So they have long conversations, although they aren't always described or narrated, but we know that they happen. So we have Caravaggio, Anna, the English patient, and Kip, and we have somewhat the day-to-day, the conversations, the interactions, the work of Kip. There's a scene where he is dismantling a bomb near the convent, and Anna goes to help him. So many things happen. And then we have a stop in the present, and we go back in time, and we are... So the title of the chapter is South of Cairo, 1930 to 1938. And here it's the beginning of the chapters of the English patient. And I have to admit that the chapters of the story of the English patient in some periods were a bit confusing to me, because as he is dying and he is taking morphine, and I suppose it also was a point that the author made. The storyline is not so linear as it was until this point. So the story of the English patient goes back and forward in time and is not so linear. And sometimes I was a bit confused about the events that were happening. And I also was confused because sometimes I didn't know if he was talking out loud or if he... Because sometimes I felt like that, and other times it feels more that he was telling the story to the reader, you know, so just for us. And in sometimes I think, I'm almost certain that was the case, because he will talk about that he was explorer of the deserts of the northern Africa. So during the 30s, he had a group of men during those years that dedicated their lives to map the desert, and they were quite interested in the Jil Kibir plateau that's in Egypt, and they were looking for the oasis, the lost oasis called Zerzura. They were called, or they called themselves, the desert Europeans. They were geologists, geographers, cartographers, photographers. So a multitude of fields, and they reunited in Dakhla and Kufra. And in 1936, a young man called Geoffrey Clifton contacted the English patient, married the next day, and 2 weeks later was with his wife, Catherine, in Cairo. So Geoffrey Clifton was English, and he was rich, knew how to pilot, and had a plane. And everyone wanted to explore Jilf Kabir. And they have moments together in the group of men and with the wife of Geoffrey Clifford, Catherine, or Catherine, where she recites poems to the group. And the funny thing is that the English patient supposedly didn't appreciate poetry until a woman recited poetry. So then we will have, again, this may be spoilery, so if you don't want to continue the video, please pause it or advance a bit. But there will be an affair between the English patient and Catherine. And we have bits here and there of their encounters and their dynamic. So as I was explaining, it's not linear, it's not beginning, middle, end. You know, you have bits here and there, and you don't even have the crucial or the moment in fact where their affair began. You have like a mumble of events. But there's a point in time where the English patient will tell his story to Caravaggio, because Caravaggio confesses to Anna that he is suspicious of the English patient because he thinks that perhaps he isn't English, and he perhaps during the war was an ally of the Germans. So his idea is to morph in even more the English patient and make him talk. And so we have chapters where the English patient is talking to Caravaggio and narrating episodes of his life during this time in the desert. So after this point, the chapters will be in the past with the story of the English patient, and in the present with Kip, Anna, Caravaggio. And also we have a retrospective of the life of Kip. It talks about his family, how he went to England to receive training from the British army, and how his older brother was against the English because he only saw them as colonizers and nothing else. And he put the blame on the English for everything, for the state of India, should we say. And he accused them of only get interested in them or in their own interests. So they were looking for themselves and nothing and no one else. But Kip didn't have those sentiments, and he respected his mentors in the British Army during his training, and he had an admiration for them. And we have Kip telling also his story. So we have here different perspectives. We have the opportunity to know each and every single one of the main characters. What were they doing before the war? What they are doing during the war? So, and the English patient here is a common character for all the others. He is the recurrent conversation partner of all characters, you know? It's kind of a pendulum for every single one of them. So I rewatched the movie, the 1996, the English Patient movie. As you can see, is with Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes is the English patient. Juliette Binoche is Hannah. Caravaggio is Willem Dafoe. Kristen Scott Thomas is Catherine Clifton. Naveen Andrews is Kip. Colin Firth is Geoffrey Clifton. And then we have another wonderful actors portraying secondary characters in a way that make part of this book. And now I have to say, I love the movie. Is faithful in a way and different in another way of the book. So something that I noticed is that in the movie the main story is of the English patient, and so the retrospective of the love story and the life in the desert of the English patient. But in the book, at least it was my perspective, I don't know if you agree or not, please let me know in the comments. I think that the main plot and the main focus is the present time with Kip, Caravaggio and Anna. As it was expected, some passages were altered, some were added, but the information is there. So the basis of the book is in the movie, but something that was changed, that it became a bit different, almost a thriller in a way, is that Caravaggio in the movie was not an acquaintance of Anna. It was like a new person that she knew. So Caravaggio was after the men, or the people I mean, that were responsible for the shopping of his thumbs. And one of these men was Almashi, and we understand that he has killed some Germans that were responsible for what happened to him, and one that was missing was Almashi. And now a curiosity about this book is that at the end, in the acknowledgements, the author says that the story is all fictional, but he based some characters in real people, so people that really existed. And one of them is Almashi. He was an Hungarian, or at least with Hungarian origins. And I mean, Almashi is the English patient. And the real Almashi was a pilot, a desert explorer, and in 1932 he embarked in an expedition to find the legendary Zerzura, as in the book. During the Second World War, he was accused of complying with the Germans, although the information are a bit contradictory. So the English suspected that he was a spy for the Italians, but vice versa, you know. So the Italians thought he was a spy for the British. Nevertheless, he at least was a suspect of having infiltrated in the north of Africa 2 German spies in the operation called Salam. And when he returned to Hungary, he wrote a book about his experience in war in Libya. But at the same time, it appears to be evidences that Almashi was involved on the rescue of several Hungarian Jews for being taken to concentration camps. So he was a peculiar character, shall we say. I'm not here telling you that I know history as factual or that what I'm saying is true. This is what some of the research that I did about this person in particular, that I thought it was interesting to bring in the video. So do your own research, don't forget that. But here in the book, that's not what happens. So Almashi, so the English patient, had ulterior motives to have been in negotiations with the Germans, and that was because he loved Catherine. I will not say what happened. I think that is a part that I won't spoil. He came back for her, and he didn't got help from the British, so he recurred to the Germans. You know, it was because of love that he complied and in a way gave precious information to the Germans, the maps of the desert that they were exploring in particular. But you will have to read to find out why. Something that happens more at the end of the book, and again, this may be spoilery, so I'm sorry, but I want to talk about these subjects and I think they are important. And if you don't mind with spoilers, go ahead. If you do, perhaps go read the book, go watch the movie, and then come back to me. So something that is different in the movie and in the book is when, so the narration begins in April and then comes August, and there's the news of the bombardment of Japan, and that affects Kip in a profound way because he thinks, so his way of thinking is that if it were a white people country, that wouldn't have happened. And he feels in a storm of feelings that come to him because of his brother and the feelings of his brother towards the English, and how he himself as an Asian man was working for the British. In a sudden moment, he realized that perhaps the English weren't his friends. And he takes his gun, and goes to the room of the English patient and points the gun to him. And he gives his radio to the English patient to hear what was happening. And so he doesn't kill him, but the interactions and the dynamic suddenly changes. He gets away from everyone, even Anna, and we get like a knife getting through these people and separating them forever, because he feels that the Asian people were guinea pigs, perhaps. I don't know exactly. This isn't described. What I'm saying is not in the book. This is my perspective. But, you know, it makes you wonder, it makes you ponder, was it really necessary, the nuclear bombs, or not, to end the war? So, and although it was an American decision, he puts Europeans and Americans and everyone in the same boat, and he turns against Ana Caravaggio and the English patient. And the feelings and the descriptions of the inspiration, admiration that Kip had towards his European country co-workers and leaders and mentors, and even Caravaggio and Anna and the English patient are suddenly changed. So, and he goes on a bike and disappears. You know, he doesn't speak to Anna. He's simply gone. And in the movie, we have a bit of a separation, but because of the death of this co-worker, Sam Hardy. So the death of Sam Hardy is why Kip isolates himself and doesn't let Anna speak to him. But the next day, he speaks to her. He explains why he was so apart from her, you know, and because they were so intimate in work, but not about their personal lives. You know, a bit about social and personal stuff, and the part of the nuclear bombs are ignored totally. So it's not even a point of question in the movie. And I suppose that's because the production is American. So they didn't want that type of cloud in the movie, you know what I mean? So that's my perspective. Tell me what you think. And then we have an ending where we have Kip in India as a doctor, and he's married, he has kids, and he sometimes thinks of Anna. And this is many years later. So as he describes, Anna would be like 34 years old, and in the beginning of this book, Anna is 20 years old. So she was very young. And, you know, we don't have the perspective of Anna, we don't have the perspective of Caravaggio, what happened to them, really, because at the point where the bombardment of Japan happens, we have then a succeeding of events that kind of end the story in a bittersweet taste. And we just have years later with Kip in his homeland, perhaps feeling betrayed in a way, but still with feelings towards Anna. So anything is black and white. The humankind and the human actions are always gray areas. The human feelings are gray. So we may not concur but love at the same time. So everything is so confusing sometimes, and some people may have certainties in their lives, but the majority, I suppose, don't have certainties about almost anything. I have to say that I want to reread this book, but I want to reread this book in the original, in English, because I have some critics about the revision of this translation. So graphic accents were missing, even punctuation. I wasn't sure if it was a choice of the author to not have punctuation, like dash, for dialogues, because in other parts it have, so in sometimes it didn't, sometimes it had. So I don't know if it was a author choice or if it was a revision problem with this particular edition. And certainly I want to reread. I really enjoyed this book. It made me ponder about the things that I've been talking to you about. And in some ways, this almost extraordinary malabarism we have to do to converge cultures and ways of life and ways of thinking, and so many aspects are intrinsic in each person, if they are religious or not, if they are from a certain culture, with certain beliefs, with morals, with anything. And Anna even says to keep, but was it our fault that they did that? So that's the questioning that you will be wondering after you read this. And what would have happened, perhaps, if the bombardment hadn't happened? Maybe Anna and Kip will be together at the end. Who knows? But because that event happened, everything changed. So it makes you think about the disparities between countries of the developed world and underdeveloped world, and how we can live with each other, basically, and how sometimes we can change our beliefs, as it happened to Kip. So he wasn't against his brother, but he didn't concur with him. But after the bombardment of Japan, suddenly he was seeing what his brother saw. You know what I mean? So it's a fascinating book, I can say that. And I think if you watch the movie, you will have a different story. Of course, I explain it to you, but I think it's a good companion to the book. And I love the portrayals of the actors. I think they were phenomenal. And it's a really worthy movie to watch. So this video was enormous, but I wanted to, and I don't know if I talk everything that I wanted. I'm hoping for that. Let me know if you have read this book. If you read in English, please let me know the things of punctuation, and if they differ between chapters, it sometimes appears and then it doesn't, if it in the original is like that or not, for me to be assured that it was a revision problem or it was an author choice. So let me know about that. Let me know your thoughts about decisions that we make during wartime. What are your thoughts about that? If you think there possibly can be a reconciliation between the East and the West. So yeah, we are facing times that are hard, and this book made me think, made me do comparisons to the present, to the right now, at the moment, what's happening in the world, and hopefully we will not face what was portrayed in this book. So if you have any thoughts to add, if you have any curiosity to add that you particularly know about this book or the author, or if you have any recommendation or any article that you think will be added value to the discussion, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to press the ring bell button to all. Like this video, it really helps the divulgation to other people. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, all my socials. They will be linked down below. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.